Alright, let's get started with a little bit of game programming. What we're going to work on now is detecting mouse clicks and also figuring out what we clicked on, and then from there we'll be able to use the keyboard and also be able to tell when two objects run into each other on the screen. These are all three elements that are ultra useful for game programming. So there's a new method we need to mess with. It's the init, or the initialization method. It's part of every Java graphics game, and it's what happens before the game actually starts. Just like the word initialize might, you might think of the definition of that. So it happens before the run method or when anything else executes. It's just things we need in place before we get started. Here's the syntax. Just like public void run, it's public void init. You can put it in your program before the run method. Not because that matters to the program, but just because that's where we would naturally look for it first. Something that's going to run first we would expect to be at the top of the program. And what it does, it executes, as it says down here, everything automatically before the run method begins. And it's just a standard Java thing. Here's an example of what it would look like. Don't code this one. Just say you want a target on the screen that maybe we're going to shoot at or something. You would put that on the screen, obviously, before we start trying to click on it. All right, one thing to notice in this previous example, we have an object created out here. It's not in the initialization method, it's not in the run method, and it's just right inside the class itself. That's going to be very important, because when we start having several methods in here, they don't really share what's inside their curly braces. So if you create something inside a method's curly braces, it's what's called a local variable, and it only exists in that small area. Just like I can't hear the thoughts that are in your head. But out here, if you say it out loud, not only can I hear it, but everybody else in the classroom can hear it and use that. So when we put it up here, it's not a local variable, it's what's called a global variable. So as it says, it can be used by the initialization method, the run method, or any other one that we decide to create. Okay, mouse input. We've seen that already. There's a system method called wait for click. We can do better than that. In fact, it's not just if the mouse was clicked, but also where and what was clicked on. So we need to tell the computer to pay a little more attention to the mouse. And there are three components. We're going to need a new Java import statement. Notice that we already have import java.auth.star. Leave that one there, and then add this one, because we're going to now have to start responding to an event, and the event is the mouse press. But in order to tell whether or not an event is taking place, we have to add this, add mouse listeners, to the init method. That sort of like cleans out the ears and tell us to start listening. It's like 5 minutes into class when I say, okay, let's start class. Ideally, you start paying attention. So we're listening for an event, and when that happens, we have a mouse event down here. You can code this method exactly as it is. The E in this event stands for event, so we have a mouse event named E. We could do things with that. We probably won't right away, but you need that there. Instead, the most important part is just for us, public void mouse pressed. This is a system method that comes in this event package. And then when the mouse button is pressed, in this case any of the mouse buttons, we can have code that's in here execute. Here's an example program. Go ahead and code that. As you code this program, note we have our 4 import statements. If you wanted to use color, also you need a 5th, import java.auth.star. It's a graphics program. We have our initialization method with our add mouse listeners. And then this one has a mouse click method. Note there's no run method on this. That's simply because we don't have anything that sort of is taking place outside of the mouse clicks. So there's no other part of the program. All this one is going to do is just say, you click the mouse in the console when it happens. All right, we can take it even a step further by using these two system methods. Get x, which is going to get us the x coordinate, and the y, get y, which is going to get us the y coordinate. Once again, x is going across, y is going down. They start up here in top left at 0, 0, and go positive this direction, and and y goes positive this direction. So it can tell you exactly where your mouse click occurred, and that's obviously going to be useful in gaming. So let's see how mouse click works in a larger program. Here's one I just created. It has all our imports up here that we're going to need. We've got our program named. We're extending graphics program, so we don't need a main method. And we're declaring our first object up here, a red ball, which is a type of GeoVol object. And we got a new one created. This is the constructor. It constructs it with 20 by 20 in size. Now notice this comment right here. We're creating this up top to make it a class variable so that everything can share it. Remember, items don't like to share outside of curly braces. They'll go inside of curly braces but not out. So if we created that between these two curly braces, we couldn't access it inside the mouse clicks, or excuse me, the mouse press curly braces. So that's why it's up top, and you should start doing that with all variables. We turn our ears on, so we're listening for a click. This is just for decoration, and then we're going to put it on the screen. Remember, init runs on its own. It's called right away. And then init naturally calls the run method, which is where our main game loop would be. But this program doesn't have a loop. The ball just sits there. But it is the program is listening for a mouse event, which is what this listener does. It tells it to start listening for when we have mouse pressed. So notice these two aren't connected with each other. Now when we press, it's going to get the X and Y location of our click on the screen, the XY coordinates. So we're using the e.getX method and the e.getY method, and E is the event. And once that takes place, we can then check if the red ball contains where we clicked, and you could swap this with e.getX. There's no difference between doing this and what we have up above. It'll check this area, or that point, and if it's inside there, it should click, should say, you click the mouse. Now if I run that, it's going to do that in the text box there. So I'm going to scoot this over, scoot that down so you can see, and there we go. So it is working. And your challenge, you can leave this line in there, but you might want to set it, and if you reference the code on Canvas, so that when we click on it, we set it visible false. One reason we're going to do that is if we want to use it again and we remove it, we would have to re-add the object to the program, and Canvas or excuse me, ACM graphics sometimes have some issues with that. So we're going to either move it off the screen by setting it to like negative coordinates, which would be something we can't see, or we can just set it visible false.